Go ahead.
Okay, welcome everybody. Good afternoon. And this is our part two webinar of our Pricing with Confidence event that we have leading up to November of 2025. I'm Carlos Garcia and joining me is Hector Garcia. Today we have an exciting topic that we want to talk about, which is inspired by an author. It's a book called The Four Conversations that recently came out this year. And so before we do go into today's topic of conversation, I know we have plenty of other information that we want to go over. Hector is showing you the book. We'll go more in depth with that in a little bit. So let me tell you a little bit about this webinar series, and then Hector, feel free to add if there's anything that I missed. This is a 1 hour CPE per webinar. We're going to have 10 total sessions. This is our session number 2. It's going to be every fourth Friday of the month, leading up to our Reframe event in Miami from November 2nd to November 5th. We've got some updates on what are some other things that we have going on for November. And so just tune in and we'll tell you a little bit more about it. We will send everyone an email copy of the slides via chat and via email post session. And the recording and playback, as always, will be posted in Hector's YouTube channel a day after the session. Okay. Real quick. So what are we going to talk about? So we're going to talk about the CPE process, how to get CPE for those of you who came to ensure that you get that, what upcoming live events we have, and how to learn more about the Reframe Society, which is our online coaching community. And I know we've got some folks out there that are in our live session that are part of the society. Hector, if you want to activate the chat to have folks say hello, if you can, that'd be great. And then we do have a couple of keynote speaker announcements. So we're excited to talk about that and what they will be focused on for our November event. And then today's conversation, which is mostly going to be surrounded around the book, The Four Conversations, a new model for selling expertise. Now, what's interesting about this is that this is focused for professional services, but it's really niched down around creative professionals. However, a lot of these concepts serve universally for any professional services. So we are putting a reframe lens, we're putting an accounting lens to it. So this conversation will be more specific to our industry. Hector, anything about the CPE process you want to share with folks?
Yeah, just wait about 10 business days and you should get an email with that CPA certificate.
And you've got a couple of polling questions they have to answer in order to be eligible, right?
Yes, preparing those.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, so about 2025 is Reframe. It's going to be taking place in Coral Gables here in beautiful Miami. It's a brand new property that actually was built in 2022. Lots of restaurants and dining, beautiful outdoor scenery. It's kind of like the higher end part of Miami, so you should expect to really enjoy your time. The weather should be beautiful. It's really right past hurricane season, so it's going to be nice weather. We're going to have a great event. We have an outdoor section that's going to be dedicated to our celebration, our welcome reception, and plenty of more to come with that. The theme is pricing with confidence. We're going to talk about it's a continuation to conversations, how to have influential conversations, but it's more narrowed down around how to be more focused on becoming an expert in learning how to price the right way and how to communicate your value and your pricing with confidence, how to also strategically price certain types of jobs and projects and your business and how that represents who you are in the marketplace and better your positioning. We know that Hector, myself, will be hosting you along with the support of Vanessa, who's our showrunner slash co-host. And then our speakers will actually be Trisha Browers, who was actually a table facilitator, a perspective changer last year. We're excited about that. She's an exactly what to say certified guide, a executive leader actually in the finance space, specifically in mortgage. So we are excited to learning about her perspective and her journey around the path to confidence, but also how to communicate pricing with confidence. We've got Ron Baker, who's the author of Implementing Value Pricing, and Blair Enns, who is the author of the book we'll be talking about today, The Four Conversations. We have a negotiated block rate. The 150 max is the capacity. We have to date 116 tickets sold. We do expect to sell out. So if you're on the fence, definitely make that decision to come out. We'd love to see you. And then for more information, go to www.reframe2025.com. We have a US tour coming up. So the virtual conference is actually, we've officially announced the date. So this is new information. So for those who missed Reframe 2024 and want a part of that, Hector and I are actually holding a 2-day virtual conference that's going to be going over the influential conversations for accountants. That includes reviewing the content from the Exactly What to Say methodology, which means that if you're part of that event, all of you will be getting a copy of this book. And we're going to be going a lot of how to leverage communication so you could be more effective during those high impact, high stakes, critical conversations. The tickets will go on sale on March 18th. So more information to follow on that. And then we will also be doing in the month of May a series of US tours that are going to be Exactly What to Say, influential conversations. I will be hosting and facilitating those, which will help you, again, elevate and become more of an influential communicator so that you can close more deals, elevate your relationships, and be able to drive more success. The cities that we have planned are going to be New York, Chicago, LA, Nashville, Dallas, or Houston in Texas. That's not 100%, but to be determined. So more details to follow on that. And then lastly, we do have a community. So if you want to keep the conversation going, this is an online mastermind where Hector and I actually give an online lesson every month. It's 90 minutes. It's called a rethink session. We're trying to look at a different part of your business to rethink it so that you can continue to differentiate yourself. And then we have a monthly mastermind. We just held ours this week and it was amazing. We had so many great conversations. And I could tell you for the folks who are in the chat, they can validate. There was so much great sharing going on. It's a very generous community and tons of folks, already experiencing transformation. So we already have pre-recorded content up to 40 hours that talk about mindset, pricing, sales, marketing, branding, positioning. So if you want to learn more about that, we'll put the link on the bottom for you to schedule a fit call with me, and I can walk you through what would it be like to join that community. Also, you get some benefits. If you're part of Reframe Society, you always get access to all of our Reframe events at the deepest discount as well, and you get some more exclusive benefits with that. So one of our keynote speakers of this year is Blair Enns. So we're going to be talking about his book, The 4 Conversations, which just came out this year, or maybe late last year. But he's written several books around pricing, one called Pricing Creativity, and another one that's focused a lot on positioning, which is Win Without Pitching. All of them are phenomenal, very dense, full of a whole lot of value for you to take yourself from being just a vendor and really positioning yourself to the eyes of the client as an expert, which is what this conversation will be about. He also has a podcast. It's called Two Bobs, and he's constantly working with David C. Baker, and they are navigating through conversations around sales, marketing, positioning, AI, technology, etc. So with that, I'm going to take a quick pause and hand it over to Hector to walk us through our conversation today.
Awesome. So thank you. So I wanted to just preface real quick that I've been a big fan of Blair for years, probably 7 years or so. I've been listening to his podcast every single episode for the past 7 years. I read Win Without Pitching probably 10 times. I probably read this once a year just to kind of remind me how important it is to have a manifesto and to have, he's got a really interesting way that he says that you should behave yourself into a new mindset, not mindset yourself into new behaviors. And I find that so a little bit counterintuitive because most, thought leaders out there, what they're trying to do is they're trying to teach mindset. They're trying to teach you how to change your mindset. And then maybe if you change your mindset, you change your behavior. He says, no. You need to behave yourself into a new mindset. So Win Without Pitching is an exercise of changing your behavior into a new mindset. I can never forget that. Then he came up with the book Pricing Creativity, which is like just pretty incredible. It's really like a workbook. And this book is priced using the principles of the book. Like this book is like $200. So it's not like a book. It's really more like a sort of self exercise workshop. So that was amazing going through that. And then when he came up with a book that Carlos and I are going to break down today, the 4 Conversations, I thought it was going to be a lot of the same. And in many ways it is. And in many ways, it's a new framework for thinking about selling your expertise. So the way the book is broken down into what he's calling 4 conversations. And he's using the word conversation to mean communicating something to the client. It doesn't literally mean a one-to-one conversation or a verbal conversation. It just means any way you communicate anything to your clients. Carlos, can you do me a favor and share the slides in the chat? People like to have a copy of the slides. So it's broken down into these 4 conversations: the probative conversation, the qualifying conversation, the value conversation, and the closing conversation. Now, the next 50 minutes, Carlos and I are going to sort of book club brainstorm this. Let me tell you something. It's not enough. This book requires like a 4-hour analysis, and we're going to do our best to cover as much as possible. We probably will go deeper into the first half and then kind of like quickly sort of skim through the second half. And then most likely, depending on how much we can get done, we will probably do an entire different webinar on the second half, just because there's so much in this book. And Carlos and I, we come into each other. It's like, hey man, I'm reading this for a second time, for the third time. Now I'm listening to the audiobook. And did you notice on this page that he actually used this word? And then we would go back and go, wow, that word was so perfect, because just like I think he said something like it took him like 4 years to write this book. And I think he literally thought about every single word that's on every page. And like when you go back and read it for a second and third time, you realize one piece of detail that was just so amazing, so delicious. It's sometimes a word that we say because it's just something that you savor. So anyway, Carlos, let's go to the next slide. And so let's start with why the book. So the book was written for advisors, practitioners, or experts. He uses those concepts basically to talk about accountants, lawyers, financial professionals, graphic designers, architects. It's pretty much anyone that identifies themselves like our whole personality is our skills, is what we know. Our personality as an expert, as a practitioner, is we want to serve our clients. We want to give our clients the best possible advice. We want to use all of our expertise, apply it to our clients and help them succeed. That's what we want to do. That's what we're passionate about. And what ends up happening is we are not so passionate about selling our services. That's the part that's kind of tedious, that annoys the heck out of us. So he wrote a book to say, you know what? It's okay for you to sell your services, and it's okay for you to feel different, behave different around selling your services, because often when we're so good at our area of expertise, we tend up being horrible at selling our services. And what ends up happening is we underprice ourselves, and we don't command high margins, and we take the wrong clients. And that's kind of the concept. The book is trying to help you with that. It's a formula to behave yourself into a new mindset, not change your mindset into a new behavior. That's a really important thing. It's also how to position yourself as a highly desirable role in the client-expert relationship, not just a great vendor. Like, you don't want to just be a great service provider. You want to be a desired expert. And you want to command high margins, which is not the same thing as high prices. And this thing was like really, really mind-bending for me, because it's a non-accountant reteaching me how to think about money when it comes to my to the way I look at how I price my services. So as a practitioner, we think that a high number, it's what we aim for. It's just a high price. But he says, focus on high margins. What's the difference between a high price and a high margin? Well, every sale has a cost associated with it. What is the cost associated with it? One, if you have to do a free consultation, right, to win the customer over, that's a cost. If you have to give away parts of the value by saying, yeah, we'll take care of that, even though at the beginning you said you weren't going to in your mind, you're like, I'm not going to take care of that, but I want to close the deal anyway. So in order to expedite the process, you throw things, like you throw additional services in there. So that cuts your margin. Or you take on costs that you shouldn't. Like, I know a lot of accountants that say, you know what, I'm going to include QuickBooks or App A or App B as part of our engagement, right? Because you think you're sweetening the deal, but what you're doing is you're taking on costs, right? So you're reducing your margin. So all of these things, the additional time that you spend, the additional services that you agree on, all the out of scope things that you end up doing, and the hard costs that you end up doing, clients that force you to drive to their office to work, where you can do it remotely, but they're the ones that want you there physically for XYZ reason, and they force you to do it and you capitulate and you say yes, that's your cost. That's your opportunity cost. Clients that require you and not a junior person to do the work, like they get mad when you send a junior person. No, it needs to be you. It needs to be you. All that stuff cuts your margin. So often before I read this book, I thought like the price is the only number I should be looking at. And what I should really be looking at is the margin. Carlos, any thoughts on that? And then we'll go to the next slide.
I mean, I think we've talked about this before, but if you are in a place where you're communicating a price and you're getting a lot of people saying yes back to back without a lot of resistance, that's also a good signal and indicator that you need to raise your price. And so that just reminds me of the opportunity. You should be getting some resistance. A percentage of your clients, I don't know what that percentage is. I'm going to just say 32%, because that's currently my closing ratio. Should be a healthy amount of people saying, that's not for me, I can't afford it. But if you're having over 85% of people saying yes to your prices, that's an indicator that you're not, the value that you're providing is way too much for the price that you're charging, and you're undercharging.
And that would be that's a little bit of a preface of what he calls the qualifying conversation, where we talk about qualifying clients for fit and all that stuff. Let's go to the next slide, Carlos. So one of probably say my favorite saying that Blair Enns says, and he always repeats it and weaves it in on every conversation, is the sale is the sample. The sale is the sample. The expanded version of that is the sale is the sample of the engagement to follow. The sale is the example of the engagement to follow. If you have a sloppy sales process, then you're indicating that you might have a sloppy accounting process, a sloppy workflow process. A sloppy workflow process increases the risk, and the risk increases or decreases the price that the customer is willing to pay. So if your sales process is pristine or as pristine as the quality of your work, you'll be able to raise your prices or increase your margins with less pushback. Now, some customers are, quote, unreasonable, and some customers just cannot afford you, right? The customer doesn't make enough money to afford you. Those two things are even like, we get it. Like that's, I'm gonna accept that. But the reality is that you also need to have a target customer, a customer that can afford you. They talk a lot about that in the qualifying conversation. A lead is not the same thing as an opportunity, and not all opportunities must be pursued. So the sales is a sample of the engagement to follow, which means you got a pristine sales process that actually showcases the quality of your work. Then the quality of your work goes up, the perceived value goes up. You'll be able to command higher margins. Next slide, Carlos. So here's the breakdown of how the four conversations, how the book breaks down the four conversations happen. So first, you prove your expertise. Then you qualify the lead. Then you determine the value. Then you close the deal. It needs to be in that order. This is such a problem when people change the value. So for example, if you say a price before you even know what you're going to do, then you didn't even determine the value, and then you have to go backwards and try to prove your expertise afterwards and then qualify the lead. Why are we going in that order? Why are we getting to the point where at the end of the day, the customer says, I can't afford you? If your customer says, I can't afford you, then you didn't follow the process, right? If your customer can't afford you, you actually shouldn't even arrive to a number. Like you should know if the customer can afford you or not, or the customer should know if they can afford you or not before you even say a dollar value. And in order to happen, it has to go through this process. Prove your expertise, qualify the lead, determine the value, close the deal. We're going to break these down. That's actually the four conversations. So on the next slide, it's going to be we're going to start summarizing each conversation. So the first conversation is called the probative conversation. Probative from the word prove, which is we prove our expertise. We prove our expertise in the mind of our clients So they are no longer looking at us as a vendor, and they're looking at us as an expert, AKA this is where you prove your value. And there's a really cool part in the book where he actually explains something that's called the flip. I think that's probably the next slide. The concept of the flip. And Carlos, maybe you want to tell me about the flip, or go back and maybe comment on any of the other stuff.
Well, I know that this is going to be covered, but you got to, this is a conversation that happens before you actually have a real conversation with the customer. Okay, I know it sounds weird, but this is how the customer finds out who you are before they decide to jump on a call with you thinking that they need you. And so everything that happens before the first conversation is happening in the probative conversation. So what does that mean is how you position yourself in the marketplace, online especially through digital presence. And we'll go over more of the things that you could do to elevate your role of an expert so that you can build more of the flip idea. And the idea of the flip is when a client no longer sees you as a vendor and instead starts seeing you as an expert, that you are so meaningfully different and so well equipped to be able to have a unique point of view, a unique process, something that makes you different from everybody else who also solves the same problem that you have. And Sherry asked, where is this where your marketing comes in? That's absolutely right. The probative conversation is part of your marketing, is part of the probative conversation, how you create content. And we'll go over some of those elements, but sorry, Hector, back to you.
No, that's fine. This is the thing. It's called the probative conversation, and it has the word conversation in it. But this might be the only one that doesn't imply you talking in front of the client. Okay. So like Sherry says, this is where your marketing comes in. But it's a lot beyond that. And let me tell you, like, sort of like the biggest example of this, the biggest aha moment that I had is when I started doing videos in YouTube and showcasing my expertise and started to command high margins, specifically for inventory clients, manufacturing clients that were paying 2-3 times what they're used to paying ever. And they tell me all the time, it's like, can't believe, I pay you 2-3 times what I ever paid anyone before, but it was worth it because you actually knew what you were talking about on this specific subject matter. And then I take a look at the opposite, which is a standard client of mine bumped into a friend, and the friend said, hey, I'm having problems with my taxes. And they said, you know what? You should call my accountant. And that's the entire probative conversation that happened prior to that person calling me was my client that's satisfied, right? And it's an endorsement. I said, you should call my accountant. And then when that person called me out of the blue and goes, hey, Mike told me to call you, that you're their accountant. He says, you're great. Can you help me? I said, sure, I can help you. Well, I need XYZ. How much does it cost? And then I'm thinking, oh, God, this person hasn't seen my videos. This person doesn't know that I'm a famous YouTuber. This person doesn't know that I've already done the work to prove to the world that I know what I'm talking about. Now I have to explain my entire pitch from scratch. And then I have to cut my margins by spending 30 minutes selling myself. So because I didn't instruct my clients to only refer me customers that are part of my niche market, and to say, hey, my accountant is expensive, but he's an expert, which will probably deter 2/3 of those referrals, but the 1/3 doesn't waste my time. That's the probative conversation. It's a conversation that happens about you. It's what the customer is perceiving that you're communicating, is how the customer perceives that you are what you are and who you are before you even exchange the first word. Now, this could happen in an email exchange. Absolutely. This could happen in a social media exchange. Yes. But we're talking about before making the major time investment that creates something called a sunk cost, which we'll talk about towards the end. But that's a really important piece. It's like I want my customers to see me as the expert, not as, oh, another one of those categories. Because the problem is that if you get a referral, and the referrals, like accountants love referrals and all that stuff, But if we only work with referrals, then we're basically having every random person that says, I need an accountant, and you let what they think and know an accountant is to shape their worldview about what you're supposed to be. And the probative conversation is, it's everything that you do to avoid the customer walking in with their own point of view about what you're supposed to be. So the probative conversation is everything that you do, your marketing. I think we have a slide on that. We'll go to the next slide, Carlos, that kind of breaks it down. So the probative conversation happens, and there's multiple levels of it. There's the educating side, there's the marketing side, and there's the selling side. And as we get closer to the selling side, there's actually more actual little conversations. But on the educating side, these are the books that you write, or ebooks that you make free into the world. This is public speaking engagement. These are blog articles. This is your content. This is maybe a published article into a known publication. This is you being featured, or you being quoted, like somebody else quoting you in some unique point of view. And by the way, they won't quote you if you said, I believe accounting should be accurate. That's never going to be quoted. Nobody's going to say, look at this amazing accountant that said, I believe accounting should be accurate, right? You don't get quoted on that. You get quoted on silly things like, as an accountant, my job is to help you pay more taxes. That you will actually get quoted on, because every single accountant does what? They advertise that they help you reduce your taxes. I don't. I tell my clients, by the way, if you work with me, you're going to pay more taxes than you ever paid ever before. And then there'll be clients that are turned off by that. There are clients that go, say more. And then I say, yeah, because I'm going to help you make so much money that you're going to stroke those checks to the IRS with happiness, right? So it's like, you have to have a unique point of view to be able to get quoted. Branded events. So when like your company, sponsors a golf tournament, or brands a golf tournament, or you brand an education event, like we brand an entire conference on Reframe. Therefore, the Reframe products that we sell, like the Exactly What to Say book adaptation, like our Reframe society, like one-day events, like anything that we sell under that brand, it's going to be much stronger because people already came to a branded event, right? The videos, of course, that's very dear to Carlos and I. We make videos, your podcast. That's what Blair calls your validated expertise. That's where your customers see and hear about you, and they know you're an expert without it having to come from your mouth. Like you'd never have to say, I'm good at this, I can help you with this. Is everything else you say implies and communicates what you're good at. That's the probative conversation. That's the pinnacle of the probative conversation, is the educating. Then we get deeper into like the more direct stuff, like marketing, right? So you purchase into a platform, right? Or you do direct advertising, or you do pay-per-click like Google search, or you sponsor events, or you direct mail, send postcards. And then more the direct stuff, like, what the direct referral process looks like. If you do get a direct referral process or an intro, when you start talking to that client, what does that look like? Or when you're in trade shows, exchanging business cards, or an email lead, and you start an email conversation, or a phone call comes in and you start a phone conversation, whether it's you or the person that answers your phone, or you do a quick Zoom session, a discovery session. And those are more, in the marketing side, those are declarations of expertise. That's you saying, I'm good at this. And the direct selling is more of a private claim of expertise. So where do you think you should be spending the most time? Okay, and the book actually covers the fact that it should be all three of them, but it depends on the immediacy of the sale. Like if you are desperate for a sale tomorrow, you should focus on the selling activities, right? Like knocking doors, right? Knocking on doors, dialing numbers, shaking hands, rubbing elbows, like just talking to advertise what you do directly as many people as possible. Whereas if you're a little patient and you're creating the pipeline for the next 3 years, then you're focused on creating more on the left side, on the educative side, right? Like Carlos and I are doing this podcast. No one's paying us for this podcast. This video, this podcast, markets not just a 2025 event, but a 2026 event and a 2027 event, right? And we're conscious of that. And we don't, at the end of every webinar, say, buy now, here's a discount, you got to buy now, because that would be us most focused on the selling side. Like we are here for the long game. We know if you educate people and you create value up front, they'll come back. It might take 2 years. It might take 3 years. It doesn't matter. Just be patient. So that's the part of the conversation. Carlos, you want to add anything to that?
I want to ask you a question. You said something like, if you are desperate for selling, you should be more focused on selling activities. So I want to offer the opposite. If you're too busy with client work, should you still make the educating and marketing an important part of your business? Should there be capacity and time allocated towards that? Because I see that a lot of people, when they get busy with client work, they take their focus away from the educating and marketing. But looking at you, Hector, as an example, who was involved with Right Tool, you're involved with doing, a lot of partner videos, you do your YouTube videos, you're still doing a lot of the educating and marketing, even though you are up to, the nose with a ton of work. So what is the healthy balance of that?
There's no healthy balance. You got to work 80 hours a day. You have to work and do marketing and never sleep and all that stuff. But my answer to that is the best time to educate folks and market what you're doing, it's when you're doing it. And it is such counterintuitive. Like the time that tax accountants should be creating content about weird tax situations is literally when they just finished doing the weird tax return. Because if you have a super busy tax accountant that at the end of the day carves out between 6 and 7 p.m. to go, you know what? Holy crap, I just did the weirdest tax return I ever done. That's the time to do it. Because when somebody sees you publish a video on February 28th that goes, hey, I just got done doing the weirdest tax return, situation ABC, new tax code. It was super interesting, but I solved it. I'm super excited. That's when people are going to go, that is so cool. He's actually showcasing the process. And I learned this from Gary Vaynerchuk many, many years ago, where he says, document the journey. Like, this it doesn't seem new anymore because almost everybody says that, but documenting the journey, it's giving people a little bit of an insight of what it feels to be an expert, right? And then people love to tag along because the most interesting thing in the world are the people that do the least interesting things in the world. It's such a weird way. So like the people that do the least interesting things in the world over and over and over, and somehow they find interest on that, actually becomes the most interesting thing out there. So I would say, I'm saying the busier you are, the more you should be documenting the fact that you're busy, right? Because to then go back in July and go, man, I'm not doing any tax returns right now. It's very slow. Therefore, I'm going to start creating some content where nobody really cares about it. I think you lose a lot of that. I think you just lose the momentum, so to speak. So I would attach what you're doing with that. So on the next slide, it talks about the difference between being positioned as a vendor versus an expert. Now, remember, doesn't matter how good you think you are at what you do, or how unique you are at what you do, and like how much better you are than other accountants. You are just an accountant. And I'm just saying it like that is because you are part of a larger category. You're part of a big category of things, of professionals that do a lot of things, and the things that they do sometimes are not exchangeable or indistinguishable from how one does it and the other one does it. So a vendor typically competes on price because they're one of many, where an expert sets the terms of engagement, right? Like, and if the customer says no, they move on. Easy. A vendor gives away diagnosis almost every single time. A vendor does free consultations because that's how they quote, that's how they get you, that's how they try to get you. Okay. And an expert actually charges for a diagnosis and diagnoses before they prescribe, in my opinion. A vendor helps broad audiences, where an expert focuses on a specific type of client or specific type of issues. We talked about niching and specializing, but a type of client, like an industry, that's one type of niching, but also a type of problem is a different type of niching, right? So we have our friend Shannon, who focuses on payroll only. She deals with all sorts of industries, but she only does payroll. And then people get wowed and they're like, holy crap, you fixed up my payroll so well. You're so amazing at doing my payroll. Can you do this other thing? And then she has to have the discipline to say, nope, I only do payroll. That's why people refer me. And by the way, when you know anyone that just mentions the word payroll and are frustrated, you call me. And that makes it very easy. That makes it very easy for people to kind of like understand how to even refer you instead of referring you as the accountant. Just call the accountant. The vendor focuses on inputs and efforts. So they're very, very focused on what they're spending, right, in terms of time and materials, whereas an expert is focused on the value being created. A vendor is focused on how a vendor follows the client and reacts to cues, whereas an expert leads the sales conversations with confidence. A vendor avoids difficult pricing conversations, where a vendor frames pricing around return investment and outcomes. A vendor is always protecting their tight margins on every decision. Most accounting professionals, when an out of scope conversation comes in, they get all shriveled up and they're like, holy crap, they're making me work more. And they just become very awkward. Instead of commanding high margins high enough that they don't mind doing the additional scope of work. Does that make sense? A vendor depends on clients' directions for strategy, where an expert guides and the client's strategic direction. So that's the shift from vendor to expert. And what you want to do is you want to have a conversation with a client where, and he, Blair mentions it in the book, when it's more than two in the client, like let's say the CFO and the CEO or whatever, they give each other the look. He calls it the look, which is the, whoa, this one's different. So think through every single sales presentation you've done. Does the customer feel, whoa, this one's different? Maybe I don't know exactly how they're different, but if this one feels different, a different point of view, a different direction, a different way to approach things. That's the shift, the flip from vendor to expert. Hector, let's go to the next one. And you want to add anything, by the way?
No, perfectly said.
Okay, on page 37, he proposes a formula. It's called the power formula. And power is a theme that is throughout the book, throughout the four conversations, which is who's got the power in this relationship? And it will sound trite, but this is just like in high school, right? Like, does he like me? Do I like them, right? You're trying to find out who's going to say that they like the other one first to see who's got the power in the relationship. So it's P equals DB over D, which basically it's power. The power in the relationship is equal to the desirability over the desire. So very, very simple, right? So who needs this engagement the most? If the client needs you more than you need them, you are the expert. If you need the client more than they need you, then you're the vendor. So if you believe this to be true, then you have to figure out, and the book has maybe like 6 or 7 pages that goes into power dynamics. And, it's a lot to cover. Strongly recommend you go over the book over power dynamics. But the end goal, if you believe this to be a true concept, just a life concept, the end goal is to do everything possible to have the upper hand in that relationship. We're not saying take advantage of them because of it, saying have the upper hand so you control the direction. Go ahead, Cardo.
Yeah, there's one thing that he talks about in this part where I thought it was very interesting, that doesn't necessarily mean that we have to be like extra about the desirability, like playing too hard to get by coming off as too arrogant, too selective. In essence, what he's trying to say in this, like the numerator being desirability, should be just slightly above your desire to want to win the business, right? You don't want to show up needy or pushy in any way, but you also don't want to go on the other side of the scale where you're showing that you're too arrogant, you're too picky. You just want to have a little bit of the edge so that it positions you as the expert you're qualified to solve their problem, but you're still someone that's different enough and unique enough to be able to solve that client's problem, but still show that level of professionalism and willingness to want to help the client.
Yeah, I like the word picky. I think it could be as simple as asking your client or telling your client. I think we should be confident enough to tell all of our leads and clients, you should be very picky about your accounting professional. Like, you have to develop the confidence to start every conversation either by saying it or communicating it non-verbally or in some other way, which is, Mr. Client, Mr. Lead, you should be very picky about your next accounting professional. Because you, as the accounting professional, you should be very picky about picking your next client. So it's fair, right? It is fair. The challenge is, if the clients are not picky about choosing their next accounting professional, they're more likely to pick you, maybe, possibly, if you're not a specialist. But then if you're not picky, then you're likely to say yes to their offer. The problem is, it'll send you in a direction that doesn't get you closer to expertise. It gets you closer to being a vendor. So that's a really important one. So
Hector, you went on mute. I don't know how. Go ahead and say that again.
yeah, so we're sharing the results. And I asked the question, how do you feel about selling your services? And then one of the answers is, I love doing the work. I hate the selling portion. 63% of you said, I love doing the work and I hate the selling portion. That's actually when we talked to Blair, Carlos and I were talking to Blair for a long time. We've been talking to Blair for a while. He was actually in one of our webinars last year. And so we've been discussing, bringing him in, and I think this is the perfect time. But he teased out this book that he was writing before the book even came out. And he said, I'm writing the book for those that love doing the work, but hate selling it. So awesome. So 63% of you, this book's going to be great for you. So how do we do it? We give away knowledge, but charge for the application. I personally, Hector Garcia, is probably the embodiment of this. I give away the knowledge. I give away everything in YouTube. But then when people want to hire me, I charge a buttload. Blair uses that term a lot. I'm going to charge a buttload. So I'm willing to give away everything I know. But the minute you want to get on the phone with me or the Zoom with me, you're going to pay a buttload. And there's no fraction of that buttload. There's 1 unit of buttload. That's a first pass. So like in my firm, if anyone wants to talk to me for 5 minutes or for 2 hours, they're going to pay the same amount, $1,500. Probably one of the highest numbers that most of the clients in my target market have ever paid a professional for the first time conversation. But I only want the top 1% of all the potential leads that come in, right? Because those are the ones that can afford me, okay? And I have options in my firm of people that are not Hector, that are as good but charge less, but that's the positioning I built. I give away the knowledge and I charge for the application, or charge for the application of the expertise. Expertise is about depth, not breadth. There was a Seinfeld episode where I forget the details, but I think somebody told George Costanza, wow, you know a lot about nothing. And it just reminds me of this. Like, there's so many people, practitioners, that know across every topic that you think of accounting. They know a little bit about finance, they know a little bit about tax, they know a little bit about bookkeeping, they know a little bit of audit, and they can hold their own in almost any conversation related to accounting. But to your customer, you have no depth. And I think that depth is going to win over breadth every single time. My strategy was inventory and manufacturing, right? So there's all sorts of different industries that have inventory and manufacturing, but that was my strategy. And it helped me really well. Helped me charge what I charge. And the last one is, you must have a unique point of view, almost a polarizing point of view. All the problems are the same, okay? Like, there's no new problems, to talk about in your social media under the earth, under the sky. There's just new problems. The only thing that there is potentially different is your unique point of view and even polarizing point of view. Make the battle over the engagement a battle of ideology. Are you attracting customers that are attracted to your point of view? Once again, if you advertise, I'm a tax accountant that will help you pay the least amount of taxes as possible, you will be in with 99% of them. If you say, I'm a tax accountant and my job is to make you pay as much tax as possible, that's polarizing. That's unique. And then people will read into it and go, you know what? I want an accountant that helps me make more money, not just focus on what to spend on to reduce my taxes. Focus on making more money. So when I pay my taxes, I'm not, I do it with joy. I help my clients pay taxes with joy. That's a polarizing point of view. That's how you stand out, right? And who's your enemy? Like, this is a battle of ideology. Like, the enemy is the really bad idea that your focus should be reducing your tax. Then, so you battle the ideology. Your unique point of view is your enemy, which is not a person, it's not the IRS, it's the idea that spending all your time and energy on reducing taxes is a good idea. Carlos, anything to add?
Nothing to add about it. I just want to emphasize that depth versus breadth is really just broad versus narrow, right? The more narrow your focus, the more that you can differentiate yourself as an expert.
Go ahead and cover this segment if you want to.
So the qualifying conversation, this is the part where you're trying to vet the lead to determine if an opportunity exists and then determine what the appropriate next steps are. So this is where you get to decide if the lead gets qualified. So what this means is that you have a very specific set of processes. As Blair says earlier in the book, is that the sale is the sample of the engagement to follow. That what that means is that inside the conversation is where you have the opportunity to better position yourself as the expert, but you also have the opportunity to understand, is this a client that has a problem that you're qualified to solve? And will there be value that you can provide that will exceed the investment? So, but this is honestly really understanding about the depth and their true problem and the fitness, not only just from a standpoint of your qualification to solve the problem, but also is there a fit in terms of mindset, right? And in them agreeing with following you as the expert, that they're going to allow you to lead them through the conversation. So you get that opportunity to understand if there's a personality fit, if there is a problem to solution fit, and you can get that decision. Both of you can make that determination what the next steps are to move forward.
Let's go to the next slide, Carlos. Okay, so this is on page 59. It's really, really good, which is not all interested parties are leads. Not all leads are qualified leads. Not all qualified leads are opportunities. Carlos, you want to correct that in the slide? Not all qualified leads are opportunities, and not all opportunities are worth pursuing. Man, that is such an important point. Such an important point. Because we assume that if the person has a checkbook and breathes, they're okay, they're a client. They're a client. So if we don't learn how to differentiate them, right? So interested party versus leads, qualified leads are opportunities, not opportunities are worth pursuing. And the book actually goes into a lot of detail in terms of like sort of lead sorting. And this is stuff that maybe, Carlos, we can cover on like a part 2 of this, just because this part is actually really, really in depth. But the most important thing is we do not grab every single person that's a small business that potentially could use our services, that needs an accountant, blah, 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 and automatically think this is an opportunity that's worth pursuing. But if you don't define the type of opportunities that you're looking for, then everything will look like an opportunity. If you don't define what makes a lead qualified, then every lead will look like a qualified lead. If you don't define what a lead looks like, then every interested party has that. Does that make sense? So here's my favorite part of the book. My favorite part of the book. And really, if the whole book could be summarized into a tweet, into an X, it would be this. It's called the Expert Mantra. And after I read this book, I literally say this every single morning in the mirror when I'm brushing my teeth, whatever. I am the expert. Carlos, Price, can you go back and correct that, please? Price is with a Z. I am the expert. I am the prize to be won, right? I am the prize to be won. I am the expert. I am the prize. I'm on a mission to help. I can only do that if you let me lead. I accept that not all will follow. I welcome you to right now during the live webinar. Say it. Say it. I am the expert. I am the prize. I'm on a mission to help. I can only do that if you let me lead. I accept that not all will follow. You walk into every engagement like that, and it's like an immediate confidence booster. But you have to believe it. You have to believe it. You can't lie to yourself. You have to believe you're the expert because you spend the time learning and becoming a master of your craft. You are the prize because working with you is a treat. Working with you, it's winning. Working with you is something that the client needs to be thankful every single day that they found you. And I know every single one of you have had at least one client that's told you, I am so thankful to have found you. Imagine if that is the feeling that every single client has. They can only be thankful to have found you if finding you was hard. And to find you, to be hard to find you, then you have to be a needle in a haystack. And to be a needle in a haystack, you have to be different, you have to be an expert, and you have to be a breath of fresh air. I am the expert. I am the prize. I'm on a mission to help. I can only do that if you help me lead. I accept that none will follow. You repeat this in front of the mirror every day, and it will change you. This is one of these things where he says, you can you can behave yourself into a new mindset. You repeat it enough, and you start believing it. And if you don't believe it, it's because you haven't changed something fundamental about how you practice that can make these things true. And if you click on the article, Carlos, click on that article really quick. I've been saving for today to post this article. So I posted it today to match the webinar. If you click on the article, I actually break down from an accountant, like an accountant's point of view, how I think this mantra breaks, like basically translates into our world. Yeah, what does I'm the prize mean? What does I'm on a mission to help mean? What does let me lead mean? And what does I accept not all will follow. And so check out the article, and I did it to give credit to the author for so many amazing things that he has helped me. Slide, Carlos. So it's very simple. The mantra has 4 components. What's my focus, which is my specific expertise. If I have a focus, I believe I'm the expert. What's my purpose? I'm here to help. If I always help and people get something out of what I do and people are thankful for what I do, that's my purpose. Here to help, my why. Leadership means let me take over. I'm not a pair of hands for you to delegate work to. Let me take the lead. I am the expert. I've done this before. I've done it for someone like you, and I've done it recently. Let me take the lead. You always allow the most experienced and the biggest expert to be the leader. The captain of the team is the heart of the team. You're going to be the captain of the engagement. You have to lead it. And the most important thing, Blair actually shares this as his number 1 tip for selling your services, is called the detachment, no sunk costs. So Carlos, you want to go to the next slide? We pressure ourselves into closing the wrong deals because of sunk costs. I spent all this money to get this lead. I spent all this time to get to the proposal. I spent all this emotional, uh, 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 all this emotional, all these emotions on trying to get this deal, and the customer keeps grinding and axing a different or the price, or keep adding more concessions and asking me to discount this and do this, and it gets to a point that we end up, because of the sunk cost fallacy, we end up just capitulating and reducing the cost, or giving away pieces of value because of all these things. So Blair says, if you believe there are no sunk costs, you detach yourself from a deal when the deal is not right. Carlos, anything to add?
Nothing that I think that's probably one of the hardest things, for us to be able to do is detach ourselves from the outcome. I think obviously this is a noble profession. We're on a mission to help. We want to help as many people as we can, but we need to understand that we also run a business, and we can't be the ones that are taking the hit on behalf of on wanting to concede to a client that doesn't believe in our value. So I think a lot of it is setting the boundaries and standing up for ourselves where it makes sense, for where it makes business case to do so.
Go ahead and wrap it up. We got a couple of minutes. Well, actually, let's just skip through the end, Carlos. I'm going to run the last polling question, and then maybe just again we'll cover the part two. Maybe just do one more repass on Reframe 2025, and then we'll wrap it up. I'm about to do the fourth polling question.
Thank you. So, a quick reminder, if you liked some of this content and you want true transformation and learning how to price with confidence, how to have better conversations, how to level up your mindset and position yourself as a professional that commands high prices and attracts higher value clients, then Reframe is the place for you to be. 2025 in Miami, Florida. It's gonna take place on November 2nd through November 4th. We have a bonus day we haven't talked about, but just quick announcement that November 5th will be a limited rebranding for accountants, kind of a 3/4 of a day workshop where it's gonna be inspired and from a lot of the work that Chris Doe has done with us, who was a former, a keynote speaker, but a lot of it is the knowledge and understanding that Hector and I have learned and through supporting and helping accounting professionals position themselves to be highly differentiated. And I know that Ron and Blair will probably hang out for that third day to add value, and they won't necessarily run the workshop, but we're going to have tons of added value around how to rebrand yourself so that clients can continue to see you as the expert that you are, and so you can command higher fees and you can attract the right clients for your firm. So more information, reframe2025.com if you want to be part of this experience. And that's what I have. Hector, what else?
Only thing I'll add is if you're coming to Reframe 2025, you might not have to buy the book. I'm just saying. But I know some of you are going to want to buy the book and go over it because that's really, really important. But usually when we bring in authors with books, we'll bring in the books and have the book signing and all that stuff. So I know I wouldn't wait till November. I'm telling you, this book is like, it's amazing. I'm reading it for the third time now, and there's so much I left out that I wanted to cover, but we want to try to keep it respected under an hour. So maybe
I would also say
that
that Blair has done podcasts after podcasts where just reconsuming this in different ways. He's got the two Bobs. He has a version of it there. There's a few people who have already interviewed him. It just helps you really digest because it's a lot of dense concepts for one to kind of first understand. But I'll go back to what Hector reference that Blair said is that you can't mindset your way into behavior change. You have to do things first before you can start believing that's what you represent. That's who you are. So what that may mean is that you may have to say no to more clients that don't fit your model. Once you have the courage to be able to say no to that first person, then I think that will be the first step into shifting your mindset that you are the prize, you are the expert, you're in the mission to help. And in order for you to do that for your clients, they have to let you lead. So that's what we have, Hector. Final thoughts?
No, that's great. I'll see you. We'll see you guys next month on the Reframe Pricing with Confidence webinar number 3. And for those who are coming to Miami, so looking forward to seeing you and exploring this content even further, helping everybody increase their prices and most importantly, command high margins. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Carlos.